Okay, guys, so trying to get these videos done while you guys are in the building has proven to be very difficult, but here we go. Let's run through the rest of the 1920s really quick. So we have this traditionalism versus modernism, right? We talked about that a while ago, but we want to look at more specifics. We have this religious culture clash that occurs in the middle of the 1920s, where Charles Darwin, our evolutionary scientist there, essentially is put on trial through the teacher John Scopes in Tennessee after he teaches Darwin's theory of evolution to his students and is told and fired for doing this and is told that you cannot teach evolution in the schools because it goes against the Bible. And so obviously John Scopes sues the state of Tennessee for wrongful termination, and his case is picked up and he goes on trial against traditionalism, basically, right? That it is okay to teach science and evolution is science, so he's allowed to teach it. And so the Scopes monkey trial, as it comes to be known as, because the teacher's name is Scopes and he's teaching evolution from ape to human, is this court case of fundamentalism versus science. And John Scopes is defended by Clarence Darrow, while the state of Tennessee is defended by William Jennings Bryan. The same William Jennings Bryan who is an anti-imperialist, but does not extend those beliefs to the idea that science should be taught in schools. And so it's a very big trial for many, many reasons, but it really speaks to the changing culture of the country. And in the end, they do determine that Scopes should not have been fired, but that it's not okay to teach evolution in schools, at least in Tennessee. And so he is found to be not guilty of being wrongfully terminated, but guilty of teaching evolution, which, if that makes sense, it's not really what the trial, like how the outcome is, but it's not like a guilty versus non-guilty kind of thing in that situation, but that's what it is. We also have, with the rise of Prohibition and the 18th Amendment, which outlaws the entire sale, making, and consumption of alcohol, the rise of organized crime in the 1920s. So the 1920s are like the big mob boss eras, right? You've got Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Bonnie and Clyde, all these bootleggers, this mafia idea that the mob is running a secret underground ring and that the government is not involved, but actually the government is involved. So with the rise of Prohibition, we get the rise of organized crime because people do not just stop drinking. People do not just give up alcohol. They just start to do it illegally. So instead of drinking at bars, you now go to drink at a speakeasy, which is still a bar, but it's a secret bar. So if you need to go to drink at a speakeasy, you get a password from somebody and you go into the saloon, which is now just a non-drinking saloon, and you find the secret door and you knock on it and you give them the password and you're escorted into the next room, which is where all the alcohol is. And a lot of the local police are members of these speakeasies as well. But occasionally they're not. So there's also, a secret code for when the police are coming to clear out. But the mob is making a lot of money off of Prohibition because they're illegally running alcohol across state lines. And they're making a lot of money off of it because people are not giving up. People also start to make their own alcohol. They make bathtub gin, we get moonshine. We have all sorts of ways to make alcohol. We're not just giving it up because the country made it illegal. So as a lot of that is happening, the Klan is rising. We talked about that. So that's another issue. But we also get the rise of nativism along with our first Red Scare, which is also partly in part of the Klan, right? So this concept of nativism that to be American is to be better. And so if you're new American, you're not that good. You have to be old American to be good. And the Klan really focuses on that, right? To be American, you have to be white, Christian. You have to be the ideal American. And because the Russian Revolution has occurred and the Bolsheviks has taken over Russia, there is this concept that communism is going to come to the United States and it's going to take over and it's going to ruin the economy of the United States. And if you follow our trends here, the capitalist economy of the United States is basically what's making all of the money. It's what the government is invested in. So we don't want communism to take over. So we are going to really focus on eliminating communism. We're going to look at communist activity in the United States or anything that we deem to be communist activity, and we're going to look at immigration laws. So the Red Scare puts a lot of people into jail and takes away a lot of civil rights because they can. And one of the most famous cases is probably the case of Sacco and Vanzetti, who are Italian immigrants. They are accused of murdering a person in South Braintree, Massachusetts, and they are arrested for the murder. They are put on trial, but there's not a lot of evidence against them. And the judge who oversees the trial has a known bias against Italian immigrants, especially. And so the two men are convicted of murder and presumed guilty before the trial even starts, which is a complete violation of many of our constitutional rights. But just in general, that's not how it's supposed to work. They are not only found guilty, but they are sentenced to death, and they are executed in 1927, simply because they were Italian immigrants, which is really what it comes down to. Now, 3 years prior to this, in 1924, we had the Emergency Quota Act that was passed by Congress that limits the amount of immigrants who can come in from Southern and Eastern Europe. So we are starting to decide which European immigrants are valuable and which ones are unwelcome. And by the end of the 1920s, we're going to find that we are going to get rid of even more people as the stock market crashes, and now we really need to focus on American America first, basically. So the rest of the 1920s has a lot going on, and by 1928-ish, I would say, especially, our prosperity has already started to decline. Again, we talked about this, I believe, that most of the prosperity of the 1920s was manufactured. It wasn't real. So by 1928, 1929 especially, we start to see that this manufactured prosperity is falling apart. And we're going to talk about that in the next video as we get into the Great Depression.